Hi muckers and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all having the best day ever. Thank you so much for clicking on my YouTube channel and on my video today. You know I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And sticking with tradition, which is what we are currently doing on my channel, we are going through and reviewing the old Shane Dawson series, the documentaries if you will, i.e. the long vlogs. We have now completed 3 of these. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying this series because I'm enjoying doing it. From the standpoint of I love YouTube culture, so going back and watching these as someone who watched them in the moment is very nostalgic. Also, I am a film major. I graduated in movie making and documentary making specifically, so watching these from that critical point of view as well is also really entertaining for me. And also just seeing how things have aged, and a lot of people have been like, oh my god, he's ran out of content, he's doing these. And I'm like, no, I said at the start, I started, if you remember this, like a month or so ago, whenever there was so much drama happening, and I said that I was going to make these videos often because I think it's really interesting, and I know a lot of you do as well. I'm just clarifying that going back and watching these, knowing what we know now is completely different, and I think it's really entertaining, and I wasn't seeing any other drama channels doing it. At least, now looking back on it, and I was like, alright, we'll get, give us something that we're not really doing right now in the drama community, which is basically, looking back on things that we thought in the moment. Do we still have the same point of view of it? I don't know, I just think it's interesting. I don't think it's that deep. Anyway, we are starting with the Jeffree Star ones today. So, the first one is called The Secret World of Jeffree Star. I have my notes here. I'm going to go through them. So there was the first series with Jeffree Star, and then there was the conspiracy series with Jeffree Star. So this is not the conspiracy series. This is the one before that. So for the setup of this one, Shane and Jeffree knew that they were going to work together on a makeup palette and it was going to sell a lot of money. But for that to happen, Shane needed to be able to work with Jeffree without getting dragged, because Shane was, public darling, if you will. So if he worked with Jeffree, straight off the bat, he was going to get a lot of criticism for working with a controversial YouTuber, even though Shane is, but we're dealing with years and years ago, whenever people really weren't tuned in. And also, Jeffree's makeup was not selling what it was selling at his peak a couple years later whenever him and Shane did the thing. And the reason for that was because Jeffree was a really controversial, a lot of people didn't like talking about him and, just kind of let him do his own thing kind of YouTuber. So this first series is very interesting because it's basically the setup to make the audience love Jeffree Star and to make the audience almost feel like they have a soft spot for Jeffree, so it takes away from the controversial Jeffree and it's now your best friend Jeffree. So with that being said, let's get into it. So, it opens with clips of Jeffree being very aggressive on MySpace, and then goes to clips of Jeffree being very aggressive on Snapchat. So it's kind of showing that Jeffree has been very much so aggressive on his social media platforms for quite some time now. I don't know if that was the aim, but that's how it comes across to me. So Shane is in his car saying how terrifying and scared he is because the last person that he switched lives with, which is what this series was going to be, switching lives with Jeffree Star, was Trisha Paytas, which, ironic and aged perfectly as well. Now he's switching lives with Jeffree Star, who he says he's genuinely terrified of. He says that Jeffree Star is, rich, intense, shady, weird. Like, he's saying all of these words about Jeffree. Basically, that he's really intimidated by Jeffree, and he's not trying to put on an act or anything. Shane isn't. He just genuinely is scared of what Jeffree Star is going to be like. Keep in mind, him and Jeffree had already met before this and already hung out before this, but he's acting like this is the first time he's ever met him. But again, I understand the drama of it all. So then we go on, and Shane said, Jeffree is so rich. I don't know how he does it, because he's also one of the most controversial YouTubers of all time. So then it includes clips of TMZ, Perez Hilton, drama channels, news sites, discussing different eras of Jeffree drama, and then it will cut in between Jeffree addressing the drama. And let me tell you something. It doesn't make Jeffree look good any of the times that he's, cutting back and forth between clips of Jeffree, because it will be clips of Jeffree, going on his shady, you should be scared to be friends with me, Snapchat rants, or literally just Snapchat rants where he's screaming at the camera. So anytime that he's cutting between Perez Hilton talking shit about Jeffree, it'll then be Jeffree screaming at Perez Hilton. If it's drama channels, it'll be Jeffree on Snapchat screaming at drama channels. It's very much so a back and forth. So he's kind of setting it up, which Shane hasn't done yet, Whenever we were dealing with the TanaCon series, it was kind of victimizing Tana from the get-go. We're not starting this by victimizing Jeffree Star. We're actually starting this by showing that Jeffree Star is a very aggressive person, and then the tone of the series then shifts that he's actually not an aggressive person, he's a really sweet person. So that's the tone. So we're starting not liking Jeffree, and then by the end, you will like Jeffree. That was what Shane wanted for this series. Alright, Shane said, I want to find out why he's so rich. So Andrew's in the car with him, by the way. It's obviously not just YouTube, but also I want to figure out if he is the monster that everyone thinks he is. So again, kind of alluding to people hating Jeffree, and also it's kind of like preemptively telling the story that you're gonna find out that Jeffree isn't the monster everyone thinks he is. Like, it's very much so a setup bit. Shane says how intimidated he is by Jeffree Star. He says how Jeffree is the kind of person that he would never get along with, which is very ironic because they're two peas in the same pod. He said, what if Shane doesn't think that, or what if Jeffree doesn't think that Shane is thin enough, pretty enough, rich enough, along those lines. So Shane and Andrew drive to Jeffree's house, but Shane says that he's only been in the house once, and that was to film with Jeffree, so he's only seen one room, which I don't believe. Like, you just walked into his house, then you went, and I'm not trying to, like, nitpick everything here, but I don't know why Shane would bother telling us that he has met Jeffree before and he has been to his house before, and then we'll like have these overt huge reactions to seeing things for a first time whenever he literally told us 10 minutes prior that he's already been in Jeffree's house, he's already hung out with him, and he's like saying, I'm so scared to meet him for the first time. It's like, you just told us that you met him. So again, there's like a lot of inconsistencies even with the intro, but that's very much so being literally nitpicking, so I'm not going to do that because it's not really that important. But all I'm saying is, if you are going through the series like I'm going through it, like taking my notes and stuff, there's already inconsistencies about how long he's known Jeffree for, I'll be honest. So they pull up to Jeffree's gated community, and they both have to show a lot of ID to even get in, and Jeffree's neighborhood is very, like, secure, very beautiful, very, like, Beverly Hills, like, I was watching it, and I was just like, I miss LA, because I obviously wasn't staying in that bougie area whenever I was in LA. I was staying at the Hollywood Roosevelt, which is literally on the Walk of Fame, like the most, like, dingy place area. I mean, the hotel was nice, but, like, the most dingy area that you can stay in LA. The last 2 times I stayed in LA, one with my friend, one with my mother, we stayed at the Hollywood Roosevelt. Everyone always asks that. Lovely hotel, love everything about that hotel, but it is literally the most awful, awful area. Disgusting, smelly, like, scary, so many things about it, right? Hollywood is just terrifying. But there was one day that it was one of my friend's dinners that I hadn't seen in years, and we went outside of LA, and it was kind of Beverly Hills direction, and it literally looked exactly like what Jeffree's house, and so I was just watching it being like, LA is seriously one of the most beautiful places literally ever, and I know my mother will agree with me because she loves it so much. Mom, if you're watching this, which I know you are, and I know that you don't know anything about like Jeffree and Shane and the series and stuff, the house looks exactly like the houses that'll be on like Selling Sunset from that show that you watch, so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So Shane says that he thinks that Jeffree has to be involved in like drugs, you know, like selling of, because to live up there is a lot of money, and Shane's still like, you're just a YouTuber. So at this stage, Shane's kind of setting it up like, you're just a YouTuber, like, how have you afforded all this? So he's insinuating that Jeffree is like in a drugs trade or something like that. So Shane keeps asking Andrew how he thinks Jeffree has so much money, and basically they keep just going back and forth saying like shady different options, but being like 100% serious on why Shane has so much money. Alright, so Jeffree answers the door in a full-length Versace, or is it Versace? Versace. Black and gold robe to many, many, many screaming Pomeranians. Listen, I have 2 dogs. Those girls are well trained. They will bark if they think that they are in danger. And maybe those Pomeranians thought they were in danger when Shane Dawson walks in and they get the, oof, Lord, and they like start barking. But like, it's crazy how they're just, Shane and Jeffree will literally just be talking, by the way, for the next like 5 minutes, and there's like 10 chihuahuas just barking, and it's so fucking annoying to listen to. I really hate the sound of those like really small yappy dogs. Lovely dogs, don't get me wrong, but like the likes of like Pomeranians and Chihuahuas, whenever they bark, I'm like, shh, and they're just talking, and these fucking swarm of dogs, and there's so fucking many of them, are like, meh, 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 meh. And I'm like, y'all aren't even gonna shut the dogs up first? Like, or put them in another room or something? Or you go outside? Like, it was, the audio levels were awful. Alright, so this is Jeffree's old Barbie house, by the way. So we're dealing with the Barbie pink house here. This is not the newest one. Alright, so we have this following quote from Shane to Jeffree. I don't know what we're doing yet. I'm really nervous. We haven't discussed what we're doing. All I know is that I want to live in your life for the day, and I want you to be very real, and I want you to make me rich. So he's saying this as a joke, but it's very ironic because that's exactly what happened with the conspiracy. I can't wait until we get to that series because I just think it's so deranged how that played out. Anyway, so Jeffree says how he's nervous as he doesn't show his house online because him and Nate, his ex-boyfriend, like keeping their privacy, but they will show it for the sake of Shane's series. Which is funny because that's the exact same thing that happened with Bonnie as well, the Graveyard Girl one, if you're watching that. So Jeffree directs Shane to pee in the maid's area, which is what he calls it, the maid's area of his house, and they're like making this big joke about it's the maid's quarter and stuff like that, and it's just very weird and distasteful anyway. Shane responds and says, let's not keep repeating like maid and maid's quarter and stuff because I don't want us to get into a scandal together. Ironic. So then Jeffree begins telling Shane about him and Nate's sex life. Don't really feel the need to dive into that much. I'm going to be honest, fuckers, really not going to dive into that much, but all I'm going to tell you is that throughout this entire episode, many times we find out about Jeffree and Nate having a lot of intimate sex. And apparently intense sex, because we're told that much. Now, I don't know if that makes someone insecure or very secure. I want to ask you that. I have a lot of friends who are dating, and I feel that us, like, single folk talk about our sex lives more than they talk about theirs. I really haven't been friends with that many people that have been in a relationship who've been, like, telling me overtly about their sex life. I feel like my single friends do, and I'll tell them about mine. But, like, I don't know, it's so weird, like, when a couple are telling you about their sex life and they're, like, right in front of you. Oh my god, speaking of, that's, like, one of my least favorite things. When someone you know, especially a family member, is telling you that they're trying for a baby. I'm like, you're openly just telling me that you're, like, fucking? Seriously? Like, I remember, this is, like, TMI, but I remember being in my Nana and Granda's house years and years ago, and I was there with, like, my mom and whatever, and my cousins come in. Or my cousin, it was one of my older cousins, and she's, like, sitting down with her fiance or boyfriend or whatever it was. I'm so uninvolved in my family's life. And she is telling my nan and granddad, who are, like, old, you know, they're, like, in their 80s, oh, we've just been, like, trying for a baby every night. And my nan and granddad are like, oh, like, let's hold out hope and all like that. And I remember being like, you openly just told our old-ass grandparents that y'all are fucking every night. That is so weird. Like, whenever you're pregnant, then be like, oh, we're pregnant. Bitch, I don't need to... We're 6 days deep into, like, trying. Like, please, keep that shit to yourself. I feel like that's almost weirder than, like, one of my friends telling me about their sex life. No, I actually think they're equally as, like, and listen, childbirth, beautiful, I'm not saying anything about that, but I'm just saying, like, to openly tell people, like, oh, we've been trying so desperately for a baby every single night, I'm like, I don't need to know, y'all, like, keep that shit to yourself. Anyway, sorry, that's a really weird tangent. Okay. They begin doing a house tour, and there's so many references to, like, old friends of Jeffree's and Jeffree's enemies, which, again, is ironic, because that's... In episode 2, we'll get to that, but James Charles is involved in episode 2, so them talking about old friends and Jeffree's enemies, fuck me, there was more to come. So Shane keeps insinuating that Jeffree has an ED because of how much junk food is in the kitchen, and overall the house is filled with, like, sugary snacks and stuff like that, and Shane's making the point that Jeffree's, like, really skinny. And Jeffree says that he only eats junk food, and that Jeffree states that he doesn't have an ED, that his family just have amazing metabolism. Now, Shane actually has a very funny, like, genuine reaction to Nate and Jeffree talking about how they can eat so much food and not gain weight. It actually was a very, like, off-the-cuff, funny, not try-hard moment from Shane, basically being like, shut the fuck up. Whenever they're openly like being like, we can eat so much and we don't gain weight. It actually was quite a funny moment from Shane. But anyway, yeah, they're talking about Jeffree's possible ED here, which is fabulous to hear. I've been wanting to hear about it. Like, fuck me, just stuff that you could have like not included. Shane actually, you know, at this part actually comes across way more genuine when it comes to Jeffree in this first episode, because he's not focusing on money a lot, but it's when he starts focusing on money and calling himself purr and all like that whenever he gets really annoying. But at least at this stage, he's not doing that yet, so he actually comes across pretty well right now. By the way, there's just like, there's an entire section of this video where Jeffree is making Shane get the dogs to lick his teeth, which, by the way, is not the weirdest thing that Shane Dawson has done with a dog on camera. But anyway, and as a dog owner myself, I love my girls, would literally die for them. Those bitches are not licking my teeth. I don't even let my dogs lick my face. Dogs, you're telling me that your dog has never tried to eat its shit or like done something nasty? Don't lick my teeth. And then Jeffree's like doing it like, and the Pomeranians are like, and then they'll do Shane, they'll do it back. It's very fucking weird. It's really weird. So Shane asked Jeffree his pronouns because Jeffree keeps calling himself like she and then calling himself he. Jeffree says he goes by any pronoun, which was nice hearing the conversation about pronouns and gender identity, especially in a series that came out years and years ago at this stage now. I appreciated hearing that. Shane finds yet another stash of sweets and candy, and Jeffree says that he has a sugar addiction and that he's never tried drugs or alcohol in his life, which to this day a lot of people don't believe. And there's a lot of footage of Jeffree with alcohol and Jeffree with... So I'm not really going to dive into that much, but all I'm going to say is that a lot of people do not believe Jeffree whenever he says that he's never had alcohol or anything like that. Listen, I really don't care. It doesn't change my life if he's taking a sip of champagne or gets drunk every single weekend, you know what I mean? But it is something that he relentlessly says, that he's never tried alcohol and he's never done any drugs. But I mean, he like smokes weed every video, which... Anyway, y'all Americans have like a twisted view of like... And listen, I love a... Ooh, but like, call a spade, you know what I mean? I will, at least. Alright. There's a section where Jeffree gives Shane and Andrea a cookie, by the way. And they all start saying how Nate, Jeffree, and Shane want to, and will be, sucking Andrew's dick. And, sorry, it's just like, I'm having weird flashbacks of this awful scene. And then they give Andrew the cookie, puts it in his mouth, and then Jeffree's like, look how much he can fit in there, or something like that. And it's really, really, really weird. The reason it's weird is just keep in mind that Andrew is a working employee. And if that was happening in any other workplace, that'd be weird. And they would be fired. Okay, but they had the power imbalance, so I guess they wouldn't be. So Jeffree shows off his makeup filming room, which is covered, and I mean covered, head to toe, in makeup that he's been sent. And Shane's like shocked by the amount of clutter. It literally is disastrous on the floor. And basically, this was the first time that Jeffree spoke to Shane about PR makeup, and it's funny, from the first episode you can see that they're already setting up the makeup storyline. So there's so many moments of Jeffree, by the way, showing off really expensive things to Shane, and then Shane will be shocked at the expensive price. Like, there's a headpiece that Jeffree puts on Shane. It's $3,500, and Jeffree makes a big deal that it isn't expensive, so... Alright then. It's just really weird. I really don't appreciate the money talk of like, I don't like flex culture. I never have. And Shane at this part isn't being like, woo, about, you know, money that he does whenever it comes to the conspiracy, what's it called? Series. But it's just really distasteful, and it's like hard to like Jeffree whenever he's like making a big deal about like $3,500. Please. It's just really weird. The video is very much so commentary about Jeffree and Nate's sex life, I say again, while they roam from room to room. Shane asks Jeffree to discuss threesomes that he's had, because Jeffree keeps bringing up that they have a lot of threesomes. Jeffree says that they have them very often, which my life has changed now knowing that, and he says that they never have them in their own bed, only when they're traveling the world, so that they never have to see the other person again, so that there's no feelings or like emotional attachment. Shane says he's not scared doing this because he's famous. Jeffree says that a lot of people don't even know who him and Nate are, but there's a lot of people that they've done it with that have kind of used text, photos, videos against them, and Shane flashes Nate's nudes on the screen. It's censored, but I was surprised that he literally flashed the nudes, because then people are going to go look for it. But like, it was really weird to include that, I'm gonna be honest. Anyway, so Jeffree hints at his dream closet. So this was the first mention, kinda, of the vault. If you remember, no, they do a closet tour, but it's just like a different closet. It's interesting because if you remember, Jeffree wanted to get this vault made for his closet, and then it got made, and he like moved out of the house like 3 months later. It's just very weird. No one ever talks about the vault. Alright. So Shane shows off the closet and with Jeffree, and Shane asks him to list the most expensive things. He brings out bags that are literally worth like $100,000 to $200,000. But Jeffree explains that the bags are like investments, which I completely understand. They go up in value, and it's like buying property, but he also has property as well, so it's just like flex upon flex. But yeah, it is very, I agree. Bags, as bizarre as it sounds, they are investments. Not every bag, but you know, Birkins, they're investments. It's weird to imagine, but yeah, they are. So Shane again says how he's confused that Jeffree can afford all of this, and he wants to know exactly how much money Jeffree has and how. Jeffree laughs and says basically he has property, makeup, funds in weed, merchandise, has about 10 businesses, and that's not including his makeup business. So basically Shane is like, why are you not showing any of that? And Jeffree's like, because no one would watch it. And Shane's like, but yes, they would. And again, this now sets up the storyline that Jeffree's going to have a lot more like personal content, behind the scenes content, talking about the thing. So this first episode very much so sets up the future of Shane and Jeffree together. And Shane definitely did way more for Jeffree than what Jeffree did for Shane in this opening bit. But then I think that, you know, Jeffree got Shane back with like the $20 million deal. So it's a little tit for tat situation. Jeffree says the value in the closet is around $9 million, which is insane. Jeffree says the sky's the limit and that he came from nothing, so he hasn't been humble this entire time, so now he's like attempting a little humble story. Fuck me. So then Nate joins them and is shocked that they're showing off the closet because Jeffree has never wanted to before. Jeffree says that when he met Nate, Nate had 7 shirts and worked in a pet shop. So this love really was real. And this was something that, you know, they experienced Jeffree blowing up together. And I think it's very apparent. To this day, Jeffree says that he's only been in love once, and it was with Nate. And that breakup was when Jeffree really started spiraling. Should we get him I'm Spiraling merchandise shirt that Shane has? If you know, you know. But yeah, it is quite interesting seeing the dynamic between Jeffree and Nate in this series. Their relationship seemed the strongest it had been, and especially in this first episode. And I mean, I've already watched the entire season now because I've written all my notes up, but it does seem to be very strong, this one, where the conspiracy one, you know, it seems strong as well, but it's kind of, you know, and then by the end of the conspiracy one, there was a lot of tension. But yeah, I do believe that Jeffree and Nate were like a genuine couple, and Nate was a big reason that people loved Jeffree, because they loved the dynamic together. It was like a YouTube couple, which, by the way, were huge crazes online. So that was the first episode, The Secret World of Jeffree Star. Let me know your opinion of this. Thank you so much for watching. I love you, mucker. And I will see you in my next one. Please subscribe. Please like. Alright, okay. I'll see you in my next one. Bye. Mwah.